Hey guys, I'm Hyozi. Last time I managed to beat fossil fighters using only water Vivosaurs, and it resulted in my most difficult Knickknack fight yet. So this time, I'll be using the final element in fossil fighters, the neutral element Vivosaurs. Neutral Vivosaurs aren't weak or strong to any other element, dealing the same amount of damage to all enemies. That could both help and hinder me, making me deal damage just short of the takedown or receive just enough damage to lose. The rules for this challenge are simple. I'm only allowed to use neutral element Vivosaurs in battle. If the story requires me to have other Vivosaurs on my team, I can include them. However, I'm not allowed to use their abilities in any way, meaning no attacking and no buffing. If I'm forced to use a non-neutral element Vivosaur and they are the only one remaining on my team, then that fight will be treated as a loss and I'll have to restart it. I'm also playing with level caps, meaning my Vivosaur's levels cannot exceed the level of the current level cap, usually dictated by the ace of the next level up fight. If one of my Vivosaurs has a higher level than the level cap, I cannot use it in battle until the level cap increases. Finally, I'm not allowed to use glitches, cheats, or exploits in any way. Now, let's begin the challenge. This time, I pick Maya as my favorite dinosaur. There's no neutral option, so I just went with one that I haven't chosen yet. Maya gives me pink hair, a white shirt, and pink shorts. I think the lighter colors fit the neutral challenge rather well. At least more than Velociraptor's all-black outfit would. Similar to the water run, I can only start obtaining neutral fossils in Rivet Ravine, so I have to wait until then in order for the challenge to begin. However, there's more to this challenge than just starting at Rivet Ravine. You see, Rivet Ravine only contains one neutral Vivosaur in Megalo. Megalo has pretty good attack and defense, and okay health. Their Excite skill is only a 30% chance, and their support effects might as well not even exist, as they only lower my opponent's attack and evasion by a measly 5%. So overall, Megalo really isn't all that great. He's just a hard-hitting guy. The big issue here, though, is the number of Vivosaurs I have. Because of my level cap rule, Megalo can only be up to level 4. I don't think there's a single Vivosaur that can make it from Rivet Ravine to the Greenhorn Plains pay-to-dig site alone. And even once I get there, I'll only have 2. So, I have 2 options here. Either option A, remove the level cap rule until I get more Vivosaurs, which is not happening if I have anything to say about it. Or option B, get neutral Vivosaurs from the shop. There is technically a third option of starting when I get more Vivosaurs, but after fully unlocking Mount Lava Flow when I get another 4, there's only Secret Island left, which won't make much of a video, so that's out. Now I can begin the long task of working to Knotwood Forest, unlocking and then checking the shop, and then restarting from scratch if I don't get good neutral Vivosaur head fossils. Specifically, I'm looking for either Mihu for their 60% attack bonus, or Guerra for their cheap first slot sleep skill. This is gonna take a while. Eventually, after 48 restarts, I finally get a Guerra head and a lucky bonus of a Guerra legs fossil. But that's not all. Once I get to Rivet Ravine, I manage to get even luckier and get a Jara head too. That puts me at 3 starting Vivosaurs for this run, including the Rivet Ravine native of Megalo. Guerra is a defensively fragile, long-range attacker that has pretty good support effects, lowering my opponent's defense and accuracy by 25%. Guerra's real strength, though, is in their first move, Knockout Cry. Knockout Cry doesn't hit very hard, but only costs 50 FP, and has a 60% chance to inflict a Super Sleep. Sleep prevents the affected Vivosaur from performing any actions for 1 turn, including swapping. This is why Guerra is so valuable, and worth resetting so many times for, as they can lock down my opponent's AZ Vivosaurs until I can eventually take them out, and then repeat for the rest of the team. Jara is basically just a second Guerra for me, as they also have Knockout Cry as their first move. This lets me have 2 chances of putting my opponent to sleep each turn, drastically increasing my chances of winning. With my revivals done, I use my super strategy of please land the 60% sleep skill to help McJunker get his tools back from the BB Grunts, barely survive my Holt fight, somehow get hit by Rex's Zyno during his fight, and then defeat Snivels. I wanted to mention Snivels specifically because I'm very scared of his Karchar for the future. Why? Well, just because a single non-crit out-of-range Karchar combo can deal half of Guera's health in one hit. And that's only Rivet Ravine Snivels. I still have Bottoms Up Bay and BB Base Snivels later on. But with that done, I can now start my level up fights beginning with Holt. I managed to go first against Holt since Jara and Guera have very low health, and, of course, fail my first sleep attack. I put Tricera to sleep next turn, and now Holt can start showing why he's actually concerning this run. With Tricera asleep, Holt can only attack with his two long-range Vivosaurs, Coatless and Pachi, who don't suffer a damage penalty when attacking from the SZ. So now my Megalo's on a timer, where I have to at least take out Tricera before Megalo gets taken out. Unfortunately, that doesn't happen, and I lose Megalo the turn before taking out Tricera. The good news, though, is I immediately get a sleep-inducing crit on Coatless, preventing Jara from getting two-shot next turn and taking out Coatless. That leaves just Pachi, who I somehow lock in a never-ending sleep loop and take out without Guera losing any health. All that's left is McJunker, who also has a long-range Steige. My first knockout cry fails to put Serato to sleep, letting them do almost half to Jara with a Serato combo. After that, I'm able to keep Serato asleep until they're at half health, when they then land a crit Serato combo on Jara, who barely manages to survive. Then it's back to sleep for Serato until Megalo takes them out, bringing Kentro forward, who also goes to sleep. Steige takes out Megalo next turn, and then Guera and Jara finish off Kentro and later Steige. Bottoms Up Bay has no neutral fossils of its own, but Greenhorn Plains does have one in its pay-to-dig site. Although there is one small problem with that. In order for the pay-to-dig site to be unlocked, I first have to beat Snivels. Snivels, who has two monsters in Karchar and Lambeo, and a long-range Futabi. This is where the difficulty increases dramatically. Futabi's Winding Snap can do about 1/3 to 1/2 of Megalo's total health in just one attack. So my strategy of putting the front row Karchar to sleep and whittling them down is completely off the table. I know, because I tried doing that my first fight and got destroyed, being unable to even defeat Karchar. So there's only one way I can win this fight. First, I have to use Guera's second move, TK Bubble, and force a rearrange with Futabi landing in the AZ. While Karchar and Lambeo can hit hard, their damage will be reduced if they're in the SZ, so they aren't as big of a threat. Preferably, Lambeo will be in the top SZ position, so when I take down Futabi, Lambeo will be the one to move forward. This both prevents Lambeo's support effects, and applies Karchar's minus 10% defense on Lambeo. Finally, I need to keep whoever is in the AZ asleep as much as possible, no matter who it is. If Futabi is awake, then they can attack Guera and Jara, while if Karchar or Lambeo is awake, then they can attack Megalo. I can't afford to lose anyone in the early stages, and have to end it in a 2v1 of Guera and Jara versus Karchar, since just 160% sleep is too unreliable. If I can manage all of this, which I know is a lot, then I should be able to win. As you can see, attempts 1, 2, and 3 all fail. Somehow, I managed to luck out and get my perfect setup on attempt 4, but that's where the luck ended. I take out Futabi, but fail to put Lambeo to sleep after, so Lambeo defeats Megalo with a counting coup. Then, Karchar lands a crit Karchar combo on Jara and almost takes them out. I almost defeat Lambeo, but Karchar hits Jara again, and leaves me with just Guera, who then falls to a Karchar Fury. Number 5 was another fail. Fight 6 has Lambeo land in the easy this time, and they're actually put to sleep after taking out Futabi. Karchar then two-shots Megalo, crits Jara, and then moves to the front after I take out Lambeo. Now this is what I've been hoping for. Is what I would say if I didn't miss my two 60% in a row and then lose Jara. Guera could win on their own from here if I land 9 sleeps in a row, but we all know that wasn't happening. After those failures, I decided I have a better chance at winning if I have higher stats. However, both Guera and Jara were revived from shop fossils, meaning battling is the only way they can level up. If I battle the people who pop up for Jewel Rocks, they only get 1 point. while the standing people give 2. That's 1 or 2 out of a necessary 50 points per level. Oh, and it gets better. Guerra is level 3, and Jara is only level 2. The level cap is 5, with 4 being the minimum to account for future fights, meaning Jara alone has to get about 100 points, or 50 to 100 fights worth just to be battle ready. So, after a lot of grinding fights, both Guerra and Jara finally reach level 4, and I can get back to Snivels. Attempt number 7, my first one after the level up fights, I get Futabi in the AZ and Lambeo in the EZ. I start by getting crit, but decide to keep going instead of just resetting, and take out Futabi. This brings Karchar forward, who actually goes to sleep on the second knockout cry. Megalo goes down after taking 2 Lambeo hits, and then Jara manages to survive another 2, including a crit sliding ram, letting me take out Karchar and miraculously put Lambeo to sleep with Guerra. After that, Lambeo never wakes up. Jara gives them a crit of their own, and Guerra finishes them off. Those Jara level ups really made the difference there. Getting crit in the beginning wasn't great, but I'm so glad I stuck with it anyways. With Snivels finally beaten, I can now get the only new revival of the chapter in Neo. Neo is pretty much just Megalo 2.0. Their stats and attacks are almost identical, with only Megalo having support effects, and Neo having a third attack being the only real difference. One important thing that Neo does have, though, is their lower level. So now I can switch out Megalo with Neo to ensure Megalo gets their 4th fossil later on, without having to worry about over-leveling. Vivian was as easy as she normally is, and Woolbeard, while taking 3 tries to beat, was just my standard strategy of rearrange and put to sleep. Even Ellie and Sally for my level up fights were easily beaten the same way. So I'll move on to the real problem, Knickknack. Again. I have just barely more health than Knickknack does. So every fight, he gets to hit my whole team with his team skill. To make that even worse, Knickknack's M-Raptor boosts his Elasmith's attack by 25%, so his team skill does about half to my entire team. My first try, I want to see how it goes with my standard tactics, meaning no rearranges. It goes badly. Yes, I can take out Elasmith, but that's about as far as I get. My second try, a rearrange throws M-Raptor in front, but Neo takes massive damage before managing to take them out. I then lose Neo the next turn, fail to put Styraco to sleep, and then Jara gets Styraco Furied out of existence. The third attempt has M-Raptor put into the EZ, but I still lose Neo after taking out one of Knickknack's Vivosaurs. Since the regular rearrange strategy doesn't work, I decide to just put Elasmith to sleep first instead of rearranging for my 4th attempt. At least, that's what I wanted to do. But I failed both 60%, so let's just move on. The 5th try, I do manage to put Elasmith to sleep. So the next turn I use TK Bubble and not only get M-Raptor in the front, but then put them to sleep as well. After that, though, I take out M-Raptor and then lose Neo and Jara to the now in front Styraco. If it was just Styraco, then I could gamble on Guerra hitting their knockout cry every turn. But Elasmith is still in back, so even if Styraco goes down, Elasmith will just finish me off. Well, since that's going nowhere, I grab Neo's 4th fossil for the extra level up stats and give it another shot with my 6th attempt. Well, anyway, attempt 7 I get M-Raptor in front, beat them, then lose Neo the next turn, and finally lose Jara and get in a 1v2. Let's just keep going. Fight 8 goes about the same as the last. M-Raptor in front, M-Raptor taken out, Neo taken out. You know, the usual. But then something weird happens. I put Styraco to sleep so they can't just Styraco Fury me into another loss. But then Elasmith just doesn't attack? In fact, Elasmith never attacks. In the 5 entire turns that it took me to defeat Styraco, not once does Knickknack attack with his Elasmith, despite his maxed out FP and my Jara being so frail. Yes, he wouldn't have been able to one-shot Jara, but he definitely could have two-shot them. It seems Knickknack has some strange quirk in his AI, where he just refuses to attack with Elasmith, specifically if it's in the SZ. He didn't do it for M-Raptor, he didn't do it for Styraco, but Elasmith, for some reason, isn't allowed to attack from the back. After defeating Styraco, Elasmith takes out Jara, but then I'm able to two-shot Elasmith and win. Why is Knickknack a problem so often? I used to think he was one of the weaker level-up fights, but after these videos, I definitely can't say that anymore. Now on to the BB base, which also has no neutral Vivosaurs in it. But that's where the shop comes in once again. After saving up a lot of money, I'm able to buy a head fossil for another post-game Vivosaur, Alo. Alo is essentially just a direct upgrade from Megalo and Neo in terms of stats, having more health, attack, and defense than both of them. At least that's what I'm expecting from Alo, but because they're only level 1, Alo is currently unusable. On my way to the BB base, the Grunt at the ship and Rex were both no issue. Nothing unexpected there. Snivels was also predictable, as he only wants to use team skills during his BB base fight, so I can just put Karchar to sleep the turn before, and Snivels instead uses an out-of-range Acro team skill, letting me defeat Karchar and easily do the same to Acro and Orano. Finally, Vivian too was no different, as she only uses her first moves during her BB base fight, so I was never in any danger from a Styraco Fury or something. Now that leaves just the big man himself, Bullwart. Bullwart is incredibly threatening this run, with his 3 long-range sauropods. If his AZ Amargo isn't asleep, then it can hit my Guerra or Jara with a 1.2 times attack. However, if Amargo is asleep, then Bullwart will just do the same to my AZ Vivosaur with his Salto or Shuno. Either way, he does increase damage and puts me on a clock. I decide to switch out Neo for Megalo this fight, hoping that I can use Power Scale to steal some FP after defeating Amargo. But unfortunately, Megalo is taken out before I can, leaving just Guerra and Jara to not stand a chance. One important thing I do learn from this fight, though, is that if Guerra is scared, then they are completely unable to attack, as they only have 2 total moves. So I better watch out for that. Since that fight went so poorly, there's only one thing I can do. I have to bite the bullet and level up Alo, hoping that Alo will have high enough health and defense to tank more hits than Megalo could. And that's where this run really starts to test me mentally. Alo is currently level 1, with a 67-point head fossil. I hate that fossil shape, leave me alone. Like Guerra and Jara, Alo can only level up from winning fights. In order to get to level 5, Alo will need 250 total points, with 20 having already come from the Grunt and BB trio before. That puts Alo at needing a whopping 163 points to reach level 5. So after a total of 82 more standing fights, I finally get Alo up to the necessary level. First Guerra and Jara, and now Alo. If I have to do this one more time this run, I'm going to go insane. Alo does in fact meet my expectations, and their health even exceeds 200. Now I have hope for beating Bullwart. But then I get smacked down again. That's when I have a funny idea. Guerra and Jara are both fragile, so they stay in the back, while Megalo and Alo were in front because they were bulkier. Now, hear me out. What if I only brought Alo, Neo, and Megalo, and just tried to beat Bullwart down with raw power? Well, let me tell you. The fight starts with Alo landing 2 crits on Amargo, and then a third on Salto, despite only having a 15% crit chance. Neo then moves forward and Neo Furies Shuno before going down, letting Megalo take out Shuno next turn. Alo then comes back and takes out Salto next turn, and then Amargo 2 turns later. Why did my hit them really hard strategy actually end up winning first try? Well, now for my level up fights, and I'll just save you the trouble. Hit them really hard, won again. It wasn't even close, even with only having 10 turns to beat Dr. Diggins. Time for the next chapter, and here I actually have fossils I can dig up for my revivals. But first, there's the shop man, who thinks he's really funny, giving me a Penta head, which I can just wait for later because it's at Mount Lava Flow, and then he gives me a Mihu body. I can't revive Mihu with only a body fossil, but he thinks he's being really funny, doesn't he? making it so close to a Mihu head fossil. And now with that out of the way, I can now revive the first neutral Vivosaur, and only one available before Duna, Brachio. Brachio is a sauropod of my own, and probably the most useful one in terms of utility. Brachio has Mighty Stomp, which is just Guera's TK Bubble rearrange, and has Power Scale just like Megalo. Brachio's support effects do lower my AZ Vivosaur's attack and accuracy by 30%, but that's not that bad, since I could just attack with Brachio and either Guera or Jara from the back. At least, that was the plan with Duna, but it didn't go too well. I do have another funny idea though, and considering how my last one went, I might as well try it. So, Alo is a good tank in front, but also has support effects that boost my evasion by 40%. Duna's Dinomatins only have 27 accuracy, so if I can boost someone's evasion to higher than 27, and just keep Duna herself asleep, then I just can't be hit, right? I'd like to keep Guera in back for the minus 25% defense, so I put Jara in the AZ position as my evasion tank. And once again, my funny idea pays off. While Jara does get hit a few times, most attacks are dodged, letting me take out both Duna and a Dinomatin in the same turn, and then her second Dinomatin 2 turns later. The fact that I've won 2 difficult fights with strategies that boil down to, you know what would be funny, is pretty amazing. Now that Duna's defeated, I can shut off the lava and get my next 2 revivals, Penta and Trow. Penta's stats really aren't that bad. They're weaker than Megalo and Neo, but honestly not bad. What is bad though is Penta's healing move, Sacrifice, which gives up Penta's health to someone else. It's basically a reverse Law of the Jungle, but better. Not good enough to be used, but better. Trow is actually amazing though. Support effects that increase all stats by 40%, a 100% accurate super poison, and the inflame ability. Trow's main downside is just how frail they are, but not as frail as Guera and Jara are, so Trow's already doing great. The Frigi fight was just a bunch of Trow raising Igno's defense to tank, and then inflaming Brachio, who then attacked with Mountain Wave until I won. Really not much to say. My first level up fight against Wesley did take a few tries, but once I TK bubbled Krona into the EZ, I could then put to sleep and chip away his whole team until I won. Mr. Ozawit was even easier, as I just kept hitting Amargo until I outdamaged Lambeo's healing and took them out. Then Steigi and Lambeo themselves were no problem, leaving my final level up fight with Sorehead. I have to beat Sorehead without losing anyone, and that's a huge problem when he has Guan boosting Pelto's attack by 90%. Just one Earth Spear from Pelto did about half of Alo's health on his very first turn. So that fight was basically an immediate failure. My second fight, I do manage to force Guan into the front with Guera, but even after taking Guan out, Sorehead just crushes my Megalo with his Pelto and Pachirino. The third fight, I have to rearrange twice before I get Pelto in the EZ and Pachirino in the AZ. It could be worse, I guess. After a bit of sleeping, hitting, and FP stealing, Pachirino goes down, and Sorehead decides now is a great time to transform Guan into the behemoth that is T-Rex. I fail to put Pelto to sleep next turn, so T-Rex comes forward and halves Megalo's health with the scare tactics. I try to get Pelto back to the front, but literally nothing changed. And then I fail to put T-Rex to sleep. I'm expecting to lose Megalo next turn, but Sorehead for some reason attacks Jara instead. Guera forces Pelto back to the front, who Megalo almost takes out with a crit. I once again fail to put Pelto to sleep, so T-Rex steps up and slams Megalo down to just 1 health. I don't want Pelto to take out Megalo when they return, so I switch in Jara to hopefully survive at least 1 attack. But then Sorehead turns into Knickknack and just doesn't attack, despite having well more than enough FP. Once I manage to put T-Rex to sleep with Guera, I use Jara to defeat Pelto, and now T-Rex is all alone. After slowly whittling down T-Rex, I finally managed to finish them off with a crit Megalo combo, and make it past what I think is going to be the last difficult fight of the run. I'm somehow in the final chapter, and my only new revival comes at Secret Island. So first, I have to beat the Sorehead 5. I get Megalo, Jara, Brachio, and Trow up to level 7 and start the gauntlet. The first fight is Sorehead's neutral team, with his Neo, Brachio, and Jara. Knowing full well at this point just how much of a pain Jara can be, I decide to remove them first with Brachio. I end up being greedy and try to take out the rest of Sorehead's team with Brachio's inflamed team skill. But Sorehead's Brachio manages to get 2 crits off on mine and take them out. This is very not good, as now I only have fragile Jara and Trow. However, Jara has a new secret weapon in Spite Blast. In exchange for dropping Jara's health to 1, Spite Blast hits Brachio for 180 damage. Trow can then defeat Brachio next turn with a super poison, and then Neo 3 turns later the same way. After that, the rest of Sorehead's fights go just as they did in my water-only run. Inflame the long-range team skill, and then finish off any survivors. The Dinomatans go the same way too, letting me go to Secret Island, where I could get my final Vivosaur in... No. No, it's too late. It's way too late. You had your chance several chapters ago. I am not training up Mihu from level 2 to 3 all the way up to level 8. No way. I don't care that Mihu has a 60% attack increase. It's not happening. It certainly doesn't help that Mihu, being a Japanese Vivosaur, restricts me from team skills outside of full Japanese teams. But even without that, it is not happening. Anyway, my final revival is Secret Island's O-Raptor. O-Raptor's support effects aren't all that good for me, and their stats are too low compared to my other options anyways. Their FP stealing gimmick is cool on paper, but it's basically just a chance to steal 20 FP. I'd rather just hit harder and then power scale when I take something out. Super Quicken is cool though. I might consider that, since Alo's 40% evasion boost to Jara went over really well last time. Now it's time for the final 3 fights, starting with Raptin. I try my inflamed team skill strategy against him, but his whole team has just barely enough health to survive. That means both Dynel and Guhnash will as well. While Raptin did survive, he has incredibly low health, so I can take out Raptin himself first, and then his 2 Dinomatans the turn after. As I thought, Dynel also survived my inflamed team skill. So I just hit him with a second one to beat his Dinomatans, power scaled to steal the FP, and then super poison him with Trow. Dynel did take out Brachio the next turn with an Imperial Wrath, but Trow's super poison knocked him down to a sliver, letting Megalo finish him off and leave just Guhnash. Of Guhnash's 3 brains, Gaweep is the most concerning to me. If I just leave Gaweep alone, then they can use their team healing skill, so I decide to handle them first. I apply an Inflame onto Brachio, and then one-shot Gaweep with a crit Earth Crush. I lose Trow shortly after, and then take out Galith with another crit Earth Crush. Now it's just a 2v1 against Gavorn, and as I'm slowly damaging him, I try using Megalo's Super Scare. Now Super Scare should lock Gavorn out of 3 of his moves, but he uses both Cascading Savagery and Ominous Bite over the Super Scare's duration. So, what? Is the Super Scare restriction just for me or something? Wasting a turn on the Super Scare actually ended up costing me the fight too, as Brachio gets taken out while Gavorn has just a fraction of health left. Alright, team skills it is then. Of course, everyone survives Brachio's inflamed Voidquake, but the next turn I take out Gaweep and power scale so Trow can apply a super poison. Gavorn finishes off Trow, then Galith switches in and Whirling Displacement's Brachio back in front. That was the wrong move, buddy, as now I have 2 attacks and can take out Galith too. Gavorn then comes back and 2-shots Megalo, leaving me with just my full health Brachio. However, after 2 turns of Earth Crushes, Gavorn scares both Brachio and me, with Scare disabling 2 moves and only Brachio's Mountain Wave being a usable attack with my FP amount. Gavorn could have just bought themselves 2 more turns to pull out a win. But, very in theme with this run, I somehow managed to luck out and can Mountain Wave Gavorn for the victory, letting me successfully beat Fossil Fighters with only neutral element Vivosaurs. That was easily my worst run yet. From the number of times I either lost or had to restart fights to even attempt them, to the sheer amount of time I had to spend grinding money to buy shop fossils, and then grinding fights to level them up. This was awful. But I somehow, some way, managed to win the whole thing. When I started this run, now, even before my first run, I didn't know if this challenge was possible. Guerra and Jara pulled me hard through the early and mid-game. I highly doubt I could have won without lucking out on getting both of them and getting Guerra's second fossil for the rearrange skill. They were by far the MVPs of this challenge. There is still one element-only video left to do, but first will come a special video to celebrate my channel's 1-year anniversary, and, it's pretty fitting because it's winter. Next time is, can I beat Fossil Fighters with only Ice Age Vivosaurs? There really aren't many Ice Age Vivosaurs in the game, but let's see if I can make them work. Well, that's it for this video, so I'll see you next time. Later.